Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining me. I appreciate you taking time to be with me over the next hour, and I'm confident that the content I'm presenting on will be beneficial as you head back to your respective organizations. I would also like to thank CBHC for the work they have done in putting on this conference. 2020 has been a year of adjustment for all of us, and I want to say thank you to Doyle and her team, as well as the conference planner, for their efforts. My name is Adam Roberts, and I am the president and CEO at AspenPointe. We are a community mental health center that provides outpatient therapy to adolescents and adults, psychiatric services, and crisis services across El Paso, Park, and Teller counties. A little bit about me. I grew up in the San Luis Valley in southern Colorado, and I knew I wanted to work in healthcare from a young age. I did my undergrad work in business administration at Regis University and received my MBA from CU Denver with an emphasis in healthcare administration. After graduate school, I was selected for a 2-year executive fellowship program in the VA healthcare system, and I continued to work in the VA healthcare system for a few years after my fellowship. During that time, I also trained with the Department of Defense for 2 years and received black belt and master black belt training in Lean Six Sigma methodologies. Throughout my career in the VA, I spent time overseeing numerous services and departments and led various process improvements and projects across all facets of the VA healthcare system. Most recently, I worked as the Chief Operating Officer at Valleywide Health Systems, a federally qualified health center in Alamosa, Colorado, which is also my hometown. Throughout my career, I have learned that great leaders truly understand the value of people. And when I arrived at AspenPointe over a year ago, I brought this philosophy with me. Our focus over the past 18 months has been around stakeholder experience. That is to say, how can we enhance the experience of our clients, our employees, and our community partners? I've brought in a team that oversees all aspects of this broader concept of experience, and I'm excited about the direction we are heading in. That leads me into the presentation that I'm going to deliver today. For 13 years, I have worked with, and supervised numerous individuals from various generations. And if anyone knows me, they know that I would much rather do this as a live presentation. But I will try to deliver a comprehensive presentation today that will have a few takeaways, and it will evolve as we progress through the presentation, and then we will have some Q&A after. So please enjoy. I would like to start off by stating that in order to understand what is going to be a quality experience for someone, you have to understand who they are and what they value. You have to understand how they communicate and what their preferences are. While this information can come from a variety of sources, there is a comprehensive body of research on different generations and how each has been influenced by the time in which they have lived. We are going to explore this more today and demonstrate how to leverage this data to better understand the needs and desires of individual stakeholder groups within an organization and outside an organization. Before we begin, there are some points I want to discuss to preface the presentation. First, it is important to remember that not all characteristics, defining events, or descriptions of a generation apply to everyone within that generation. Everybody is different, and that is important to keep top of mind. It is also important to acknowledge that many of us may overlap between generations. For instance, you might be born in the years that classify you as a Generation X, but you also might communicate in a way that is more aligned with being a baby boomer. I would say this overlap is fairly common based on my observations of the workforce and teams I currently oversee. So why are we discussing this? If you are like me, you probably find this topic pretty interesting because it affects you and everyone else. We all were obviously born in a given year and are shaped by formative experiences in the world that happened during that respective time period. But I would offer there's an opportunity for us to use this content in the professional space for the betterment of our organizations. Typically, new employees do not understand why or how things get done in an organization, and that is a difficult space to navigate. But I would challenge that mindset and say, Why is the mindset of the organization that way? And where's that coming from? We all have to change the perspective in which we work and see each other as people. And if we can change the dynamic in our institutional thought process, then we can change the way in which we address challenges and overcome them with different generations, personalities, and perspectives. Therefore, we will be looking at learning more about each generation, which I know everyone will find interesting, learning to leverage each generation's talents, looking critically at organizational design, and then finally thinking about how we leverage all of this to enhance stakeholder experience. For the first time in history, organizations are facing the reality of having 5 generations of employees working together. Employees could be ranging from 18 to 80, and this has huge implications for employers. One of the phenomenons that make this work relevant is the fact that there are now 5 different generations working together in the workforce. Each one has its own style, preference, and perspective. This means there are multiple approaches to how people work and communicate and how they are motivated and inspired. According to Purdue University, these numbers break down as follows. Traditionalists, or what's referred to also as the silent generation, were born between 1925 and 1945, and they only make up 2% of the workforce. Baby boomers, who were born between 1946 and 1964, make up 25% of the workforce. Generation X, who were born between 1965 and 1980, make up 33% of the workforce and are the second largest group. Generation Y, often referred to as Millennials, were born between 1981 and 2000 and are now the largest generation in the workforce at 35%. Lastly, Generation Z is just starting to enter the workforce. These are individuals who were born after the year 2000. You can imagine the vast differences between these different individuals, and in some cases, the similarities. And now they're all working to accomplish common goals. Generation diversity has great potential, and new ideas and new ways of thinking and working can come from this diversity. But let's first take a look at some of the characteristics that define each generation. First one is traditionalists. They can be described as dependable and loyal people. World events that have shaped traditionalists into who they are include the Second World War and the Great Depression. Given the limited technology they grew up with, this generation may prefer gestures such as handwritten notes instead of emails, and also grew up in an environment where obedience and respect for authority were highly valued. The next group we're going to look at are the baby boomers. Baby boomers can be described as optimistic and competitive, but also as workaholics, as evidenced by the statistic you see that shows 65% of this generation plan to work past age 65. Events that shaped this generation include the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights Movement. Baby boomers prefer efficiency when it comes to communication and are motivated by company loyalty and a sense of duty. As an employer, allowing baby boomers to be mentors and providing them with specific goals and deadlines can be a solid approach to motivation. The next group is Generation X. They were born between 1965 and 1980, and Generation X has been shaped by the boom of the internet and the AIDS epidemic. Generation Xers also prefer straightforward and efficient communication and favor having a work-life balance and policies that support this. Extending opportunities for personal development is a tactic employers should employ with this specific generation. The next group are Millennials. Full disclosure on this one, I am a millennial, so please hold your comments to yourselves. I want to give you a number to remember, 75%. By the year 2025, that is the percentage of the global workforce that will be millennials. Given this significant presence, It is critical for the future of organizations to pay close attention to the preferences and styles of millennials. Millennials have been widely and thoroughly studied and covered in the media, sometimes in not so flattering ways. Even though this generation has had the greatest focus of attention, they are often not happy at work. The Deloitte Global Millennial Survey found that 49% of millennials surveyed say they would quit their job in the next 2 years if given the choice. Reasons for wanting to quit, in order from highest to lowest percentages, included pay and financial rewards, the lack of opportunities to advance, lack of learning and development opportunities, not feeling appreciated, work-life balance, boredom, and lastly, culture. This is a group that grew up on technology. So using tech to communicate, such as IMs, text messages, and emails, is definitely preferable. This constant connectedness makes it also important for employers to get to know them personally, as they value relationships. Then leverage that data to tailor how you manage these individuals. Allowing millennials to be mentored can also be important. Organizations will also have to alter their recruitment and retention strategies to cater to this growing workforce. They strive for rapid progression, a varied and interesting career, and constant feedback. You have to seek opportunities to leverage technology and build new processes and systems that will allow them to flourish in today's modern and very competitive environment. The last group I'm going to cover is Generation Z. The youngest generation in the workforce. Generation Z grew up with technology being a norm, grew up in post 9/11 world, and is the first generation to fully grow up with digital platforms like social media that's readily available. It is probably not surprising then that this generation self-identifies as digital device addicts and enjoys working with new technologies. The verdict may still be out on the merit and health of leveraging technology so frequently, so it may be worthwhile to look into wellness programs that emphasize the merits of limiting technology usage. There's also a sixth generation developing, and that is the Generation Alpha, which I am not going to cover today because I figured 5 was enough, and that generation is and will be a generation of the future where we are just now learning about them while they are just now learning about the world they are growing up in. So why does all of this matter? Now that we have gone over some high-level characteristics of each generation currently in the workforce, let's revisit the start of our time together when we discussed why this matters. In a simple way, it matters because it gives us insight into the events and information that help form the perspectives of each generation, and more importantly, it matters because we can then leverage this data to inform structures and processes we put into place with our companies. At this time, I'm going to diverge from thinking about the complexities of different generations and introduce a concept that transcends across different generational values and experiences. I'm going to ground this presentation in the core of what drives and what really matters in the work we do, and that is the concept of focusing on people, no matter who you are or where you came from or what generation you are from. I can't underscore this concept enough, that being people-focused and finding commonality for what motivates people in an inclusive manner will really drive organizational improvement. By having the core of processes and structures be people-centric, we can see stronger performance when it comes to metrics like employee satisfaction, turnover, and engagement. Even though there are many differences between generations, we have to find similarities and work from there. For example, most people, regardless of generations, want to be engaged in work, build a better quality of life, and they want to be happy and respected. These days, people are more focused on work-life flexibility, expectations of loyalty and job security, and professional growth, meaning, purpose, and having a good leader. Careers in general have become so dynamic and complex, it has lost the historic correlation between age and career progression. At improving communications, structures, and processes while understanding values of different generations, but staying focused on what motivates people. Let's talk about understanding motivation. In order to find any type of commonality across staff and to truly understand the needs of a workforce, you have to gain insights into the workforce and dig into the individual interests, attitudes, values, preferences, and opinions. Taking a more of an attitude or value-based approach to understanding your workforce is probably a shift for most organizational leaders because historically, organizations have segmented their workforce based on demographic indicators when developing talent strategies. Organizations tend to leverage a one-size-fits-all approach and apply the same rewards, same structures, and same processes across an entire system. And by knowing more about each generation and what they are motivated by is a step in the right direction, there is still an opportunity that exists for organizations to dig deeper and provide tailored and more personal packages to different individuals based on mindsets, attitudes, and behaviors. There's a lot of research on this topic, and while this may seem to be daunting and challenging task, and there may be several questions concerning logistics around how to understand a workforce's individualized motivation, I would suggest starting small. Provide employees more options with different perks and various fringe benefits. Allow for flexible work schedules to accommodate employees. Attitudes that are focused on work-life balance, for example. The pandemic we are currently in has shown how remote work can be leveraged and to provide leveraged to provide added flexibility for people in general. But moving forward, it could be applied to certain individuals that have an emotional link to satisfaction by working remotely. Generations have been shown to be used more often to inform policies and programs related to careers and learning compared to areas such as performance management, compensation, benefits, and well-being. The latter areas have historically been focused on individual needs, but in order to really improve in areas of talent acquisition, learning, career, and leadership development, organizations have to get more personal in regard to segmentation to enhance and improve strategic decisions in these areas. There's an opportunity for new segmentation strategies and greater personalization to happen in these areas. When common stereotypes like older workers want to retire as early as possible, or workers no longer need to develop once they have reached a certain tenure to continue to be incorrect, then the delegation of generation become less relevant. Overall, organizations need to start finding new ways to measure, track, and respond to individual characteristics that may not be apparent or visible to organizations today. Let's talk about communication. Another important topic to discuss today is communication and how do we improve that. Communication strategies and how to most effectively get employees on the same page plagues organizations. A piece of research that jumped out to me came from the Society of Human Resource Management. And as you can see on the slide, it stated, in a 2016 study, the SHRM notes miscommunication can cost even small firms of 100 employees an average of $420,000 annually. As we all know, our budgets are stretched thin, and we must operate in a way that minimizes waste as much as possible. Many organizations struggle with communication, but in learning more about individuals through the characteristics that define their generations, we can be more informed around the audience of our communications and deliver the right message at the right time. If you think back to the different characteristics of each generation, it makes sense that baby boomers and Generation Z are going to communicate differently. Tailoring our communication practices to meet the needs of different individuals is often not a focal point for organizations. But it is my hope that based on the study mentioned above and having more information on how individuals communicate, we utilize this information to move this area forward in a progressive and more impactful way. Now, communication is a two-way street, so you also have to implement ways to solicit feedback and create clear channels so that individuals can contradict or provide a different perspective through a medium that they prefer, like either giving live direct feedback in a meeting or an online meeting, or something more indirectly, like written feedback or a secure chat, can help individualize the way different people might want to provide feedback. Let's talk about structures and processes now. One of the fundamental questions that leaders have to ask before working to improve the performance or management of your workforce is, do we have the right structure to meet the individual needs and priorities of a multi-generational workforce? I would describe one of my chief accomplishments as the president and CEO of AspenPointe to be the fact that I brought in a leadership team that has helped in flattening our organizational structure. This has allowed for individuals to focus on specific areas in which they have subject matter expertise. A flatter structure also provides the ability to spend more time developing people with an increased focus on stakeholder experience. One of the constants in leveraging any information is the need to collaborate across interorganizational departments. There are many approaches to do this, but for us, creating a flatter structure has been an important foundational change to leveraging data to focus on stakeholder experience. Also, creating an environment where roles and responsibilities are clearly understood, you can also allow more autonomy, which in my experience improves morale in many situations. Also, teamwork evolves when people clearly understand what their role and responsibilities are because they build confidence in team settings. And that's because they know what they have to offer and how to provide that in a valuable and transparent way. I would invite you to reach out directly if you have any questions or thoughts around redesigning your structure. It has enhanced our communications and provided increased opportunities for cross-departmental collaboration, which supports the usage of data. But we have so much more work to do to build on these structural changes. We now have to look at program and process development. Our organization and all organizations today have the opportunity to apply data analytics to design workforce management programs that are based on a comprehensive understanding of individual behaviors, values, and attitudes, as well as demographics and career and life stages. This is a post-generational approach to meet workers in ways that are more meaningful to them and should yield improved performance and engagement. Please take a second to contemplate these questions. What if we designed career programs around work behaviors and created learning programs focused on workers' learning styles and preferences? Or what if we had a leadership development program that worked on evolving individual capabilities, needs, and expectations, and focused talent acquisition on recruiting people based on their capabilities and attitudes towards work-life balance and where they are in their careers? This is fundamentally a different way to think about how most of us currently address our workforce. Now it's important to discuss, how do we enhance stakeholder experience? As we move towards the end of our presentation, I want to touch on the merits of enhancing stakeholder experience, which has been a key outcome of leveraging generational and individualized data throughout this presentation. The mental health and broader healthcare industry has evolved tremendously, especially in the past decade. With the advent of advanced digital platforms, the healthcare industry has become more consumer-centric and has had to evolve to meet the individualized expectations patients and clients have come to expect from other industries. With just about any product or service, if you do not get a quality experience, you will not you will not be back. Sometimes, if you do get a quality experience and a bad product or service, you will give the brand another chance. For example, perhaps you ordered a drink from Starbucks recently and it was made incorrectly. If the barista quickly apologized and made a new one, you are likely to go back to Starbucks again. If they said, "Oh well, that is what you ordered," you are highly unlikely to go back. The reality is, our clients and patients have choices in where they receive their care, and there are continuous disruptors to our industry trying to capitalize on this. Differentiating your brand through individualized stakeholder experience is a viable strategy in this competitive space, and something I want you to consider when developing strategies and programs in these areas. Leading organizations in these areas are now experimenting with understanding their customers' underlying values, attitudes, opinions, and interests to deliver better experiences. Let's talk about our teams, our employees. Experience really does start at the beginning of the employee life cycle and continues through training and development. When we are recruiting talent and hiring, what if we use the information within this presentation to make those decisions? The answer is we would likely see people who are more engaged and invested in the process, knowing we have invested the time to tailor their experience. Thinking about how we are going to train and develop staff utilizing various ways to accommodate different learning styles, from computer-based training to classroom-based training, is worth noting. And another thing to think about would be looking at mentoring programs and peer learning workshops that can aid on bridging the differences in learning styles, no matter what generation an employee is from. And what about our clients and their experience? The majority of this presentation focused on leveraging generational data for our employees and teams. However, we can do the same to enhance the experience our clients have within our systems. Tailoring communications and deepening our understanding of these individuals is also likely to yield more loyalty towards our organizations. Since we are in a service industry and consumers have a choice, we have to pay attention more towards values, preferences, attitudes, behaviors, and characteristics to drive what we do and how we do things. We are now coming to the point where we're going to bring this presentation to some conclusions. These are very uncertain times, and it is impossible to guess what will happen as all of these people from different generations work together. But I can tell you, this is a time to be flexible and put a good management structure in place to address any challenges that will arise in the unknown future. Progressive organizations are shifting their approach in an effort to better understand the workforce's attitudes and values, while harnessing technology to analyze and create insight into workers' needs and expectation. And I encourage all of you to look at this time as an opportunity to design and implement personalized workforce strategies and programs that are more targeted towards workers' individual attributes. And this is in order to maximize their contribution at work and align themselves with the purpose of the organization. I know I have covered a lot of information today, but here are just a few last thoughts and takeaways that you can apply in your work right away. I know I have covered a lot of information today, but I hope I have given some new ideas or concepts for you to think about, spurred some innovation, or changed the way you're going to look and manage your workforce. Wrapping this up, here are just a few last thoughts and takeaways that you can apply in your work right away. First one is establish respect with everyone because we all crave respect. And the key is to accept that each of us are different and consider what motivates people and what their working styles are likely to be. Second one is be flexible and accommodating to needs and preferences from different generations. Older people might value working part time or reduced hours so they can enjoy the rewards of their years of service. Generation X may be responsible for caring for elders and or children. So anything that can help them get a better work-life balance is ideal to them. Generation Y crave a social life outside of work, and that can be just as important as their career. So think of ways that you can create more social environments and interactions outside of work for these individuals, like a company softball team or company social outings. Also, please avoid stereotyping and fight your unconscious bias and instead focus on people's work and accept based on merits. And also remember that someone might be stereotyping you. You also have to tailor your communication style to suit the recipient, no matter how unnatural that might feel. And also find similarities between generations and work from there. Most, if not all, people in the workplace want to be engaged in their work, build a better quality of life, and long for happiness and respect. And I know we all share the feelings of being overworked and stressed at times, and that crosses all generations and all people. Last, always be open and learn from others because there's a wealth of knowledge that is new and historic. In order to gain that intellectual asset, you have to think of new ways to retain, share, store, and organize that knowledge. If you focus on how to leverage skills and experiences of generations rather than why generations are different, this will set you apart from others, and you can be more creative and innovative as a leader, a peer, a team member, a colleague, a clinician, an employee, or a supervisor. Thank you once again for taking time to join me today. I'm looking forward to hearing your questions in the Q&A section. And if you have further follow-up questions that do not get addressed in that session, please feel free to contact me directly. My email is adam.roberts@aspenpointe.org. Thank you.